story. The sizzle of eggs hitting the hot pan filled the kitchen as Lance Baldwin expertly cracked them with one hand, his other reaching for the pepper grinder. Morning sunlight streamed through the bay windows, catching the steam rising from his coffee mug. At 42, he cut an impressive figure even in his casual weekend attire, tall, broad-shouldered, with steel-gray eyes that could disarm opponents in any boardroom negotiation. "Over easy or scramble today, princess?" he called out to his daughter Mia, who sat at the kitchen island, her legs swinging beneath her as she colored. "Scrambled, please. With the cheese on top, just like always," Mia replied, not looking up from her artwork. Her dark curls fell forward, obscuring her face as she concentrated on staying within the lines. Lance smiled, reaching for the shredded cheddar. These Saturday morning breakfasts were their special ritual, especially precious now that his work schedule had grown more demanding. The Baldwin and Associates architecture firm had expanded rapidly over the past year, requiring frequent business trips to oversee new projects across the state. "Daddy?" Mia's voice carried a note of innocent curiosity that made Lance turn around. "Why does Uncle James always come over when you have your business trips?" The spatula froze mid-flip. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "Mommy says it's grown-up time and makes me stay in my room." Mia frowned slightly, her crayon pausing on the paper. "But I can hear them laughing downstairs really late. Sometimes they play music really loud." Lance's hand tightened on the spatula handle, but his voice remained steady. "Does this happen often?" "Uh-huh. Last week, when you were in Portland, Uncle James brought pizza, but Mommy said I had to eat mine upstairs." Mia's lower lip jutted out. "It's not fair. I like pizza too." The eggs were starting to brown at the edges, but Lance barely noticed. His mind raced through the past few months, cataloging small details he dismissed. Christine's suddenly password-protected phone, the new yoga classes that left her too tired for their usual evening conversations, the subtle changes in their intimate life. James, his younger brother by 3 years, had been spending more time at their house lately, claiming to need Lance's home office for urgent project work, while their firm's headquarters underwent renovations. "The eggs are burning, Daddy." Lance snapped back to the present, quickly sliding the overcooked eggs onto a plate. "Sorry, princess. Let me make you fresh ones." "It's okay. I like them crispy sometimes," Mia said, accepting the plate with a smile that was pure sunshine. "Can you make the cheese extra melty?" As Lance prepared a fresh batch of eggs, his peripheral vision caught movement in the doorway. Christine stood there in her designer loungewear, her blonde hair artfully tousled as if she'd just woken up, though Lance knew she'd been up for hours, having heard her shower running at dawn. "Good morning, family," she said, moving to kiss Mia's head before approaching Lance. He accepted her perfunctory peck on the cheek, noting how she didn't quite meet his eyes. "Any eggs left for me?" "Just made extra," Lance replied evenly, sliding some onto a plate. He watched as she took her usual seat beside Mia, pulling out her phone and immediately becoming absorbed in it. The screen was angled away from him, as it had been for the past few months. "Mommy, can Uncle James bring pizza again next time Daddy's away? But can I eat downstairs this time?" Christine's phone clattered onto the granite countertop. "Mia, honey, what do we talk about?" "Some conversations are private." Lance turned to the sink, methodically washing the pan as he processed his daughter's innocent revelation and his wife's reaction. His law school training 3 years before he'd switched to architecture kicked in. Never reveal your hand too early. Gather evidence. Build your case. "I have some work to catch up on," he announced, drying his hands. "Going to make a few calls in the study." "On a Saturday?" Christine's tone was perfectly calibrated to sound concerned rather than relieved. "You've been working so hard lately, honey. Maybe take a break." Lance met her eyes, his face a mask of casual agreement. "Just a quick check-in with the Portland client. Their timeline's pretty tight." In his study, Lance closed the door and pulled out his phone. His finger hovered over James's number for a moment before scrolling to a different contact, Dustin Hendricks. They'd been friends since college, before Dustin had transferred to criminal justice and eventually became a private investigator. The call connected on the second ring. "Lance? Been a while, man. Everything okay?" "Not really, Dustin. I need your expertise, and I need absolute discretion." Lance kept his voice low, though the study was soundproofed, a feature he'd insisted on when designing their home 5 years ago. How soon can you meet? There was a pause, then the sound of papers shuffling. I can clear my afternoon. That's serious. Yeah. That coffee shop on 7th? The one with the private booths in back? I'll be there at 2. And Lance? Don't do anything rash before we talk. Lance ended the call and pulled up his calendar, noting Christine's yoga class scheduled for Monday evening. A quick check of James's shared work calendar showed him blocked for client meeting at the same time. He spent the next hour making legitimate business calls, establishing his alibi while his mind constructed and discarded various scenarios. The architect in him appreciated the irony. He'd spent his career designing perfect structures, while his personal life had developed hidden structural flaws. At 1:30, he emerged from his study. Christine was in the garden, phone pressed to her ear, speaking too softly for him to hear. Through the window, he watched her laugh at something the caller said, her free hand playing with her hair, a gesture he'd once found endearing. Going to meet a client, he announced when she came back inside. Shouldn't be more than a couple of hours. On a Saturday? Christine's concern seemed genuine, but now he caught the slight tension around her eyes. They're working you too hard, honey. Maybe James could take some of your meetings? James has enough on his plate, Lance replied, gathering his keys. Besides, some clients prefer dealing directly with the senior partner. The coffee shop was half empty when Lance arrived. Dustin was already there, his investigator's eyes scanning each new arrival. He'd aged well since college, his formerly lanky frame filled out, hair prematurely gray but lending him an air of authority. Whatever it is, Dustin said as Lance slid into the booth, it's written all over your face. Lance laid out the situation clinically, starting with Mia's innocent breakfast revelation and working backward through months of subtle changes. Dustin listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a small pad. Here's the thing, Lance concluded. I need to know everything. Not just the affair, because let's be honest, that's the least of it. James has been making moves at the firm, subtle ones, but they're there. I need to know if this is just about sex, or if there's something bigger. Dustin tapped his pen against the pad. You want surveillance? Everything you've got. Audio, video, electronic monitoring, whatever's legal and admissible. It won't be cheap. Lance's smile was cold. Money's not an issue. Just make it undetectable. I don't want them spooked until I have everything I need. What's your endgame here? Dustin studied his friend's face. If it's what you suspect, this could blow up your family, your firm. My family? Lance's laugh was harsh but quiet. Christine lost the right to call herself family the moment she involved my daughter in her lies. And the firm? My father built that firm from nothing. I spent 15 years growing it into what it is today. Like hell, I'm letting James destroy that legacy. Dustin nodded slowly. I'll need access to your house when they're out. We'll start with the basics: cameras in common areas, audio recording devices, electronic monitoring. All legal, all admissible in court if it comes to that. Give me 3 days to gather the equipment. You've got 2. Christine has yoga on Monday evening. The rest of the weekend passed in a surreal parade of normalcy. Lance played his role perfectly, the busy but devoted husband and father, slightly distracted by work but otherwise unchanged. He watched Christine field text messages with slightly too much interest, noted how she always kept her phone with her, even to the bathroom. He observed James's Sunday afternoon visit with new eyes, catching the lingering glances, the subtle touches when they thought he was focused on his laptop. Monday evening, while Christine was at her fictional yoga class, Dustin and his team worked with professional efficiency. Cameras were hidden in smoke detectors and air vents, microphones concealed in light fixtures and beneath furniture. A sophisticated recording system was installed in the basement, accessible remotely through encrypted channels. Everything set, Dustin confirmed as his team finished. You'll have eyes and ears on every room except the bathrooms. That's a legal line we can't cross. All footage is time-stamped and backed up to secure servers. Are you sure you want access to the live feeds? Some things you can't unsee. Lance's expression hardened. I need to know everything. Every conversation, every plan, every lie. Hell, I'll watch them fuck if it gives me ammunition. Dustin grabbed his friend's arm. Listen to me. I've done this hundreds of times. The ones who torture themselves watching live feeds, they crack. They confront too early, make mistakes. Let me monitor everything. I'll compile reports, give you the relevant information without the emotional gut punch of watching it unfold in real time. After a moment's consideration, Lance nodded. Daily reports. And anything urgent business-related, especially I need to know immediately. Agreed. And Lance? Whatever we find. Remember Mia? She needs you thinking clearly. As Dustin's van pulled away, Lance stood in his driveway, looking up at the house he'd designed with such care. Somewhere inside was his daughter, probably reading with the babysitter, unaware that her innocent breakfast conversation had set such events in motion. His phone buzzed a text from Christine. Class running late. Don't wait up. Red heart. Lance allowed himself a small, cold smile as he typed back. No problem, honey. Take your time. Red heart. The game was on, and Lance Baldwin didn't intend to lose. 3 days into the surveillance operation, Dustin's first comprehensive report landed in Lance's encrypted email. He waited until he was alone in his office, doors locked and privacy screens engaged, before opening the file. What he read made his blood run cold. The recordings had captured far more than just physical infidelity. Late-night conversations between Christine and James, pillow talk that revealed an elaborate scheme years in the making. Lance listened to selected audio clips, his expression growing harder with each revelation. The Thompson account is perfect timing. James's voice purred in one recording. Lance thinks he's got them locked down, but wait until they see the revised specifications. When the project delays hit, you can suggest he takes some time off, for his mental health, of course. Christine's answering laugh was cruel, unfamiliar. His precious reputation for reliability, gone. Meanwhile, you'll be there to save the day, showing the board how unstable he's becoming. They're already worried about his excessive attention to detail, slowing down projects. Another clip from their bedroom. The shareholders' meeting next month is crucial, Christine whispered. I've been documenting every minor argument, every late night at work, building a paper trail of emotional neglect. Once you have control of the firm, we can push for a dissolution of assets. With his pattern of instability, custody won't be an issue. Lance's hand tightened on his mouse, the plastic creaking under his grip. The depth of betrayal was staggering. His brother and wife weren't just having an affair, they were systematically working to destroy everything he'd built, to take his company, his daughter, his legacy. A knock at his office door made him quickly close the files. Come in. Veronica Lawson, his office manager of 8 years, entered with a stack of papers. The revised Thompson specifications, Mr. Baldwin. James asked me to get your signature before the client meeting tomorrow. Lance accepted the documents, noting how Veronica avoided direct eye contact. Thank you, Veronica. I'll review these personally. After she left, he compared the specifications to his original designs. The changes were subtle but significant: altered materials lists, modified timelines, shifted load-bearing calculations. Implementation would cause delays, cost overruns, potential safety issues, all traceable back to his final approval. His phone buzzed a text from Dustin. Need to meet. Found something in the financial records. The private investigator was waiting in their usual back booth at the coffee shop, his expression grim. As soon as Lance sat down, Dustin pushed a tablet across the table. Your office manager's been busy, he said quietly. These are wire transfers from your firm's accounts over the past 18 months. Small amounts, nothing to trigger automatic audits, but they add up. The destination accounts are interesting. Lance scrolled through the data, his architect's mind quickly recognizing patterns. Shell companies? Set up by James through a law firm specializing in creative corporate structures. But here's the kicker: Veronica's getting a cut. 10% of every diverted payment goes to an account in her daughter's name. Her daughter's college fund, Lance murmured, remembering the proud announcement 2 years ago when Kelly Lawson got into Stanford. James found her pressure point. There's more, Dustin continued. Your brother's been systematically overcharging certain clients, ones he knew wouldn't check the details too closely. The excess gets split between various accounts. Some clients are actually shell companies he controls, used to launder money for other schemes. Lance set the tablet down carefully, his mind racing. What about Mia's medical expenses? Dustin's expression darkened. Yeah, about that. Those specialized allergy medications Christine insists on? I had my pharmaceutical contact analyze the pills. They're basic vitamins, repackaged. But your insurance is being billed for high-end prescriptions. The payments are going to an account controlled by Christine's personal LLC. She's been using fake medicine? Lance's voice was deadly quiet. Worse, she's been making Mia think she's sick, keeping her dependent and isolated. There's a term for it, Munchausen by proxy. It's a form of child abuse. The coffee cup in Lance's hand cracked, hot liquid seeping onto the table. A waitress hurried over with napkins, but Lance barely noticed her. His mind was already shifting from shock to strategy. I need a lawyer, he said finally. Not just any lawyer, someone who makes sharks look friendly. Dustin pulled out his phone. I know just the guy. Clayton Caldwell. He specializes in complex corporate divorces. Former prosecutor turned private practice. He's expensive as hell, but money's not an issue, Lance cut in. Set up a meeting. Lance. Dustin hesitated. What are you planning? They want to play the long game? Fine. But they forget I learned architecture from my father, but I learned strategy from my mother. She was a chess master before she died. Taught me that the key to winning isn't just seeing the board, it's having the patience to let your opponent think they're winning until it's too late. That evening, Lance sat through another family dinner, watching Christine fuss over Mia's special medicine with new eyes. His daughter dutifully swallowed the vitamins, believing they were keeping her safe from imaginary allergies. How was your day, honey? Christine asked, her hand lingering on his shoulder as she cleared the plates. You seemed distracted at breakfast. Thompson project, he replied truthfully. Some concerns about the specifications. James mentioned that, she said carefully. Maybe you should let him handle the client meeting tomorrow? You've been under so much stress lately. Lance met her gaze, letting her see exactly what she expected, a man beginning to doubt himself. Maybe you're right. I'll talk to him in the morning. Later, in his study, Lance reviewed the day's surveillance footage. He watched James enter through the back door during his lunch meeting, saw Christine lead him upstairs. Their voices filtered through the hidden microphones. Lance is cracking, Christine said between kisses. The Thompson project will be the first domino. Once that falls... Patience, baby, James murmured, pulling her closer. Everything's proceeding perfectly. The board's already concerned about his erratic decision-making. Once the Thompson project falls apart, they'll be begging me to take control. And Mia? Christine's voice held no maternal warmth. The medical records I've been building show a pattern of his negligence with her health. One missed dose, one forgotten appointment, all documented by a concerned mother. James chuckled. The custody hearing will be a formality. Speaking of formalities, did you get him to sign the new insurance papers? Last week. He never reads the fine print anymore. Too trusting. Her laugh was cold. The policy's ironclad. When the board forces him out for health reasons, the payout goes to the trust one control. Lance switched off the feed, his expression carved from stone. The next morning, he met with Clayton Caldwell in a private room at the city's most exclusive club. Caldwell matched his reputation, immaculately dressed, silver-haired, with eyes that evaluated everything in terms of leverage. He reviewed the evidence in silence, occasionally making notes in precise handwriting. Quite the confluence of criminal activities, Caldwell said finally. Insurance fraud, corporate embezzlement, medical abuse of a minor. Your wife and brother have been thorough. I'll give them that. I want them destroyed, Lance stated simply. Not just divorced or fired, destroyed. They used my daughter as a pawn. Caldwell's smile was reptilian. Then let's discuss strategy. First, we'll need a forensic accountant, someone who can untangle the financial web without alerting your office manager. Already on it, Lance replied. Dustin recommended someone. Melody Friedman. She's reviewing the records now. Good. We'll need to document everything. Every altered specification, every fraudulent transaction. But most importantly, Caldwell leaned forward. We need to protect your daughter. The medical abuse angle, that's our nuclear option. No judge will look kindly on Munchausen by proxy. Lance's phone buzzed another surveillance alert. He ignored it. How do we proceed? Carefully. They've spent years building their trap. We dismantle it piece by piece. Starting with, Caldwell pulled out a document. Your brother's recent project alterations. I understand you have the originals? Every file, every change, all documented. Lance's smile was cold. James never realized I keep backups of everything. It's a habit our father insisted on. The next week brought a flood of revelations, each worse than the last. Melody Friedman, posing as a potential client, began her covert audit of the firm's books. Her findings painted a picture of systematic corruption that went far beyond simple embezzlement. Your brother's been creative, Melody explained during a secure video call. He's established a network of shell companies, all interconnected. Look at this pattern. Lance studied the complex financial web displayed on his screen. The transfers are designed to hide the money trail. But here's where it gets interesting. Some of these companies are connected to Red Hawk Development. Martin Spencer's company? Lance frowned. Red Hawk was one of the largest real estate developers in the state. Exactly. Your brother's been helping Spencer evade taxes through a complex series of property transfers and artificial losses. Your firm's legitimate projects are being used as cover. The implications were staggering. Martin Spencer was not only one of their biggest clients, but also sat on several influential boards. If he was involved, there's more, Melody continued. Your office manager, Veronica Lawson? She's been doctoring the books for years. Every project James touches has hidden fees, padded expenses. The overages are split between multiple accounts. Lance remembered Veronica's daughter, Kelly, a bright girl who'd visited the office often. The college fund? That's just the beginning. There are at least 6 other employees involved, all with similar arrangements. Small enough cuts to keep them quiet, big enough to ensure loyalty. After the call, Lance sat in his study, reviewing years of project files with new eyes. The pattern was clear now: systematic corruption disguised as routine business practices. His father's legacy, twisted into a tool for fraud. His phone chimed a text from Christine. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Red heart. Another surveillance alert followed minutes later. James entering the house through the back door. Lance activated the feed, forcing himself to watch as they met in the kitchen. The Thompson presentation's ready, James said, pulling Christine close. Lance's original specs are buried under so many revisions, he'll never spot the changes in time. When it falls apart, the board will see it as the final straw, Christine finished. His pattern of instability will be complete. Have you spoken to Martin? Spencer's on board. He's arranging for his construction company to handle the eventual repairs. The cost overruns will be significant. Lance ended the feed, his hands steady as he reached for his phone. Dustin, I need you to look into Martin Spencer. Everything you can find. The next day, Lance met Caldwell at their usual private room. The lawyer's smile suggested good news. Spencer's not as clever as he thinks, Caldwell announced. My contacts at the SEC have been watching Red Hawk Development for months. Your brother's tax evasion scheme? It's the thread that could unravel everything. Can we use this? Carefully. Spencer has connections, but he's also vulnerable. The right pressure, applied correctly, Caldwell's smile widened. How would you like to turn their star witness into our ace in the hole? Lance leaned back, considering the chessboard taking shape. Each piece was becoming clear: James's corruption, Christine's manipulation, Veronica's betrayal, Spencer's schemes. All interconnected, all vulnerable. Set up a meeting, he decided. Somewhere private, somewhere Spencer will feel safe. It's time to have a frank discussion about the future of our business relationship. That evening, watching Mia do her homework, Lance felt a cold rage crystallize into pure determination. His daughter looked up, smiling that innocent smile that could still pierce his heart. Daddy, do I have to take my medicine tonight? It makes me feel funny sometimes. Lance knelt beside her chair, his voice gentle. How about we skip it tonight, princess? Our little secret? Mia's eyes widened with conspiracy and relief. Really? But Mommy says. Sometimes, Lance said carefully, we need to question what people tell us, even people we love. How about you tell me exactly how the medicine makes you feel? As Mia described symptoms that matched common side effects of vitamin overconsumption, Lance recorded every word on his phone. Another piece of evidence, another nail in Christine's coffin. Later, reviewing the day's surveillance footage, he watched Christine search frantically for the missed dose, her mask slipping to reveal raw panic. Her subsequent phone call to James was revealing. "He's getting suspicious," she hissed. The medicine routine, it's the linchpin of everything. Without it, the medical records, the custody angle. Calm down, James soothed. The Thompson presentation is in 2 days. Once that explodes, everything else falls into place. Lance will be too busy defending his competency to question anything else. Lance switched off the feed, his path clear. The Thompson presentation would indeed be explosive, but not in the way they expected. All the pieces were in place. His enemies had revealed themselves, their schemes laid bare. Tomorrow, he would begin dismantling their carefully constructed plans, piece by piece. But tonight, he had one more call to make. "Clayton, schedule that meeting with Spencer. I think it's time we discussed the true cost of doing business with Baldwin and Associates." In his home office, Lance opened his father's old desk drawer, removing a small recorder identical to the ones his father had used to document every client meeting. Some habits, it seemed, were worth inheriting. The game was entering its final phase, and Lance Baldwin intended to be the one calling checkmate. Melody Friedman didn't look like someone who could unravel complex financial fraud. With her designer suits and artfully highlighted hair, she appeared more suited for fashion magazines than forensic accounting. That was exactly why Lance had chosen her for this operation. "Ms. Friedman." James's smile was practiced as he welcomed her to the Baldwin and Associates conference room. "We're excited to discuss your development project." Lance sat quietly at the end of the table, watching his brother perform. James had always been the showman of the family, using charm to mask ambition. Today, that tendency would work against him. "Please call me Melody." She smiled, opening her laptop. "I've reviewed your previous projects. Very impressive portfolio." "Lance handles the traditional projects," James replied smoothly. "I specialize in more innovative approaches. In fact, I'd love to show you some recent developments." "Actually," Melody interjected, "I'm particularly interested in your financial structuring. My investors have certain requirements regarding tax efficiency." Lance suppressed a smile as James took the bait. For the next hour, he watched Melody expertly lead his brother through increasingly detailed discussions of the firm's creative accounting practices. Every word was being recorded. Later, in a secure office across town, Melody played back key portions of the conversation. "Your brother's not just embezzling," she explained, pulling up complex financial diagrams. "He's running a sophisticated money laundering operation through the firm. Look at these patterns." Lance studied the screen. Red Hawk Development keeps appearing. Martin Spencer's company is central to the scheme. They're using your legitimate projects as cover for tax evasion. The money moves through multiple shell companies before ending up in offshore accounts. "Can we prove it?" "Better." Melody's smile was predatory. "I can demonstrate how it's tied to the Thompson project specifications James altered. He's not just sabotaging your work, he's using the inevitable repairs and cost overruns to funnel money through Spencer's construction companies." Lance nodded slowly. "Make copies of everything. Triple encrypted, multiple locations." "Already done." "But Lance..." Melody hesitated. "The scope of this fraud, if it goes public, it could damage the firm's reputation." "The firm is already damaged," Lance replied coldly. "James and Christine saw to that. Now we rebuild, but first, we excise the cancer." That afternoon, Lance had another meeting, this one with Nadine Hodges, a child psychologist specializing in cases of parental manipulation. "The medical records are disturbing," Nadine stated, reviewing Christine's carefully documented history of Mia's supposed allergies. "Classic Munchausen by proxy behavior. She's created an elaborate illusion of illness to maintain control. Will Mia need extensive therapy? She's young, resilient. More importantly, you caught this early." Nadine leaned forward. "But Lance, we need to document everything. I'll need to interview Mia professionally, carefully. If we're building a case..." Do it, Lance interrupted. Whatever it takes.
But protect my daughter first.
That evening, Lance sat with Mia in her room, reading her favorite story. He'd started recording these moments, building his own documentation to counter Christine's false narrative. Daddy? Mia looked up from her book. My stomach feels better when I don't take the medicine. But Mommy says I'll get sick if I don't take it. Lance kept his voice calm while his phone recorded. Tell me more about that, sweetheart. When did your stomach start feeling funny? As Mia described her symptoms, Lance noted how they aligned perfectly with vitamin overdose effects. Each word was another nail in Christine's coffin. Later, reviewing surveillance footage, he watched Christine in their kitchen, frantically calling James. The medication routine is falling apart, she hissed. Lance is asking questions. If anyone looks too closely at those prescriptions... Calm down, James replied smoothly. The Thompson project is almost ready. Once the board sees how unstable Lance has become, no one will question your concerns about his judgment, including his medical decisions for Mia. Lance switched off the feed, his expression granite. The next phase was ready to begin. The company fundraiser was in full swing when Lance stumbled slightly, his vodka tonic sloshing in his glass. Several board members exchanged concerned glances. Perfect, Lance. Christine's voice carried just the right note of worried embarrassment. Maybe you should slow down? The clear liquid in his glass was water, but no one needed to know that. Lance had spent weeks crafting this performance, the slightly loosened tie, the occasional missed detail in meetings, the forgotten signatures on important documents. James approached, radiating false concern. Brother, let me take that drink. You're having a rough time lately. I'm fine, Lance slurred carefully, pulling away. Just need to focus on the Thompson project. Something's not right with those specifications. He caught the flash of triumph in James's eyes. His brother thought the trap was working perfectly. Later that week, Lance sat in his office, reviewing the latest surveillance transcripts. Christine and James were growing bolder, meeting more frequently at the house. The board's completely convinced, James gloated. Did you see their faces at the fundraiser? When Lance started rambling about specification errors. Time to move forward with the buyout offer, Christine replied. The medical records are ready, perfect documentation of his declining mental state and its impact on Mia's healthcare. Speaking of health, James's voice turned calculating. That new anxiety medication you suggested for him? Already in his morning coffee, Christine laughed. Just enough to make him foggy, forgetful. Perfect explanation for all those mistakes he's been making. Lance set down the transcript, his hands steady despite the revelation. A quick call to his doctor confirmed his suspicions. The blood test he'd secretly requested had found traces of prescription anti-anxiety medication in his system. More evidence for the growing file. The next morning, James strutted into Lance's office without knocking. Brother, we need to talk about the firm's future. Lance looked up, carefully arranging his features to show fatigue and uncertainty. What do you mean? The board's concerned. James sat down, uninvited. The Thompson project delays, the specification issues, your behavior at the fundraiser. They think you need a break. He pulled out a document. A buyout offer. Very generous terms. You'll retain an advisory position, of course. Lance made a show of squinting at the papers. I need time to think. Of course, James smiled, shark-like. Take all the time you need. But Lance, consider what's best for everyone, including Mia. After James left, Lance forwarded copies of the buyout offer to Clayton Caldwell. The lawyer's response was immediate. Perfect. Every clause is proof of intent. Keep playing along. Lance spent the next week appearing to unravel further. He misplaced crucial documents that actually contained subtle traps, contracts with hidden clauses, proposals with deliberately flawed budgets. Each one was designed to tempt James into overplaying his hand. Christine stepped up her performance as the concerned wife. Honey, maybe James is right, she suggested over dinner. You've been under so much stress. These mistakes with the Thompson project. What mistakes? Mia piped up innocently. Daddy never makes mistakes with his buildings. He's the best architect ever. Lance caught the flash of annoyance in Christine's eyes before she masked it with a smile. Adults are talking, sweetie. Eat your dinner and take your medicine. Actually, Lance interrupted, letting his voice waver slightly. I've been thinking about Mia's medication.
The cost.
Is necessary, Christine snapped, then quickly softened her tone. Darling, you know how important it is. Remember what happened last time we tried reducing her dosage? The episode she referred to had been entirely fabricated. Lance had the proof, but he simply nodded, playing his role. Later that night, the surveillance system caught Christine's phone call to James. He's considering the buyout. Even questioning Mia's medication, he's more out of it than we thought. Perfect, James purred. Push him to decide quickly. The Thompson presentation is next week. Once that disaster unfolds, the board won't just approve the buyout, they'll insist on it. The Sustainable Urban Development Project was the largest in the firm's history, a $100 million complex that would redefine the city's skyline. Lance had spent months on the original designs, knowing James would be unable to resist tampering with them. He waited until late one evening before calling Seth Ramsey, the project's lead developer. Seth, I need to show you something. Privately. No documentation, no emails. They met at Seth's private club, where Lance laid out both sets of plans, his originals and James's altered versions. My God, Seth whispered, comparing the specifications. These changes, the structural implications alone, would cause catastrophic failures within 5 years, Lance finished, requiring extensive repairs and modifications, all handled by specific contractors, of course. Red Hawk subsidiaries, Seth realized. Martin Spencer's companies. Lance, this is criminal fraud, Lance supplied. But here's what interests me, Seth. Your name appears in some very interesting financial documents. The color drained from Seth's face. What do you want? Your cooperation. The board meeting next week, James will present his version of the plans. You'll attend with some special guests. Government inspectors, specifically. You're asking me to help destroy your brother? Lance's smile was arctic. I'm offering you immunity. The SEC is very interested in Red Hawk Development's creative accounting. Help me, and I'll make sure they focus solely on Spencer and his more active conspirators. Seth studied Lance's expression for a long moment before nodding slowly. What exactly do you need me to do? The next day, Christine was practically glowing as she informed Lance about the upcoming board meeting. James thinks it's important to review the Thompson project progress with everyone. The whole family will be there, even my parents. Really? Lance managed to sound nervous. Maybe we should wait. No, darling. Christine squeezed his hand, her wedding ring cold against his skin. It's time to face reality. You're not well. Let James help. Lance waited until she left for her yoga class before reviewing the latest surveillance footage. James and Christine in the kitchen, celebrating their apparent victory. The board meeting will be perfect, James gloated. The whole family watching as Lance's incompetence is exposed. Your parents will finally see why you need to leave him. They're already convinced he's having some kind of breakdown, Christine replied. After his behavior at the fundraiser, and now questioning Mia's medical care. The custody hearing will be a formality. Lance switched off the feed and called Clayton Caldwell. Everything's in place for next week? All set, the lawyer confirmed. SEC investigators are ready. I've also contacted Christine's parents privately. They'll be very interested in the evidence of their daughter's medical abuse of their granddaughter. Lance ended the call and sat back in his chair, reviewing his mental chessboard. All the pieces were in position. James and Christine thought they were about to deliver checkmate, unaware that every move they'd made had been anticipated, documented, and turned against them. The Thompson project presentation would indeed be memorable, just not in the way they expected. Lance allowed himself a small, cold smile as he imagined their faces when they realized how completely they'd been outmaneuvered. Daddy? Mia's voice came from the doorway. Can you read me a story? Lance's expression softened as he turned to his daughter. Of course, Princess. How about The Emperor's New Clothes? It's a story about people who think they're very clever, until someone tells the truth. Is it a happy ending? Yes, sweetheart, Lance replied, thinking of the evidence files waiting to be revealed. The truth always comes out in the end. The Baldwin and Associates boardroom buzzed with anticipation. Board members sat straight-backed in their leather chairs while extended family members lined the walls. Christine's parents, Robert and Eleanor Matthews, had prime seats near the front, their expressions a mixture of concern and disapproval as they glanced at Lance. James stood at the presentation screen, radiating confidence in his tailored suit. Thank you all for coming. Given recent concerns about the firm's direction, I believe it's crucial we review the Thompson project status. Lance sat quietly at the far end of the table, his appearance carefully disheveled. He caught Christine's smirk as she whispered something to her mother. As you can see, James continued, pulling up the first slide, these are the original specifications approved by Lance. He paused, letting the technical drawings fill the screen. Unfortunately, there have been some concerning modifications. Board member Margaret Chun leaned forward. What kind of modifications? Substantial changes to load-bearing calculations, material specifications, timeline estimates. James clicked through several slides, his voice grave. Changes that would have catastrophic implications for project viability. Lance watched the board members exchange worried glances. Even Christine's father, Robert, was shaking his head disapprovingly. The cost overruns alone, James began, but the boardroom door opening cut him short. Seth Ramsey entered, followed by two stern-looking men in suits. Sorry to interrupt, but I believe these gentlemen from the Building Safety Commission have some questions about those specifications. The color drained from James's face. This is a private meeting. Actually, one of the inspectors stepped forward. We have a warrant to review all project documentation. Mr. Ramsey brought some concerning discrepancies to our attention. Lance stood, his disheveled appearance falling away like a shed coat. Perhaps, James, you'd like to explain why the specifications you're presenting as original don't match the ones I filed with the City Planning Office? There must be some mistake. James fumbled with his presentation remote. No mistake. Lance's voice cut through the room. Clayton? Clayton Caldwell emerged from the back of the room, carrying a leather briefcase. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I have here the original specifications, digitally signed and time-stamped, along with evidence of systematic alteration of these documents. This is ridiculous. Christine stood, her designer dress rustling. Lance is clearly having another episode. He's been increasingly unstable. Interesting you should mention that. Lance nodded to Caldwell, who activated the boardroom's audio system. Christine's voice filled the room. Just slip the medication into his coffee every morning. He'll be too foggy to notice the changes. Perfect excuse for all those mistakes he's been making. James's voice followed. The board will have no choice but to accept the buyout. Between his erratic behavior and your documentation of his mental health issues, Eleanor Matthews gasped. Christine, what have you done? Mother, I can explain. Christine began, but Lance wasn't finished. Perhaps we should discuss Mia's allergies next? He pressed another button, and surveillance footage appeared on the screen. Christine carefully emptying prescription bottles, replacing expensive medication with vitamins. Her voice coaching Mia to exaggerate symptoms. You've been playing with health of my granddaughter? Robert Matthews stood, his face thunderous. Not that, Lance corrected coldly. Fraud. The insurance payments for those fake prescriptions were quite substantial. Speaking of fraud, he turned to the inspectors. I believe you'll find these financial records interesting. Melody Friedman stepped forward, tablet in hand. Complete documentation of systematic embezzlement, money laundering through Red Hawk development, and tax evasion schemes involving multiple shell companies. James lunged for the door, but security guards were already there. Christine's face had turned an interesting shade of gray. You bastard, she hissed at Lance. You planned this whole thing. No, Christine. Lance's smile was arctic. You and James planned this whole thing. I just made sure everyone saw who you really are. The next few weeks unfolded like a perfectly orchestrated symphony of justice. Lance sat in Clayton Caldwell's office, reviewing the latest developments. The insurance fraud investigation is proceeding quickly, Clayton reported. Christine's facing multiple felony counts. The evidence of her manipulating Mia's medical care is particularly damning. And James? Corporate fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. Clayton checked his notes. The SEC is particularly interested in his relationship with Red Hawk Development. Martin Spencer's already trying to cut a deal. Lance nodded, remembering Spencer's face when the evidence emerged. The developer had crumbled quickly, offering testimony against James in exchange for leniency. Veronica Lawson's cooperating, Clayton continued. Turn state's evidence the moment we presented proof she'd been doctoring the books. She's implicating several other employees in the scheme. Her daughter's college fund? We arranged for legitimate financial aid. The girl shouldn't suffer for her mother's crimes. Clayton paused. Speaking of children, the custody hearing won't be necessary. Lance's voice was firm. Christine's parents filed statements supporting my petition for full custody. Apparently, medical abuse of their granddaughter crossed a line even they couldn't ignore. The lawyer smiled. They were quite vocal at her bail hearing. I believe Eleanor Matthews called her daughter a monstrous creature in front of the judge. How's Christine handling prison? Not well. Her lawyer tried claiming emotional distress, but those surveillance recordings of her coaching Mia to lie about you. Clayton shook his head. The prosecutors using them to demonstrate premeditation. Lance stood, walking to the window. Below, the city sprawled out, unaware of the drama playing out in its courts and boardrooms. The board meeting footage was particularly effective, Clayton noted. Watching James try to explain those altered specifications to the building inspectors. Priceless. He always did crack under pressure. Lance turned back. Any word on his attempt to start a competing firm? Clayton's smile widened. That's the beauty of it. Your father's original company logo and architectural style guide? The ones James was planning to use? You trademarked them 6 months ago. While he was busy stealing clients and sabotaging projects, Lance nodded. He never thought to check the intellectual property rights. A knock interrupted them. Dustin entered, carrying a thick folder. Final surveillance report. Christine's last conversation with James in the holding cell is interesting. Lance took the transcript, reading aloud. This is your fault. Your stupid plan to take over the firm. Now I've lost everything. My plan? You're the one who wanted revenge because Lance got the company instead of me. They're turning on each other, Clayton observed. Perfect for the prosecution. And Mia? Dustin asked quietly. Doing better. Nadine's helping her understand none of this was her fault. Lance's expression softened slightly. She's already healthier without those unnecessary vitamins Christine was forcing on her. The men were interrupted by Lance's phone. It was Margaret Chun from the board. Lance? The emergency shareholders meeting just concluded. The vote was unanimous. You have full control of the firm. Thank you, Margaret. And the other matter? The rebranding proposal is approved. Baldwin and Associates will become Baldwin Architectural Group. A fresh start. After ending the call, Lance turned to his allies. Gentlemen, I believe this calls for a celebration. Dinner at the Capitol Grill? My treat. 6 months passed like a cleansing rain, washing away the rot and leaving fresh growth in its place. Lance sat in his newly redesigned office, reviewing the firm's latest quarterly reports. The Baldwin Architectural Group's reputation had not only recovered but grown stronger, their commitment to transparency and ethical practices attracting high-profile clients. A knock at the door preceded Margaret Chin's entrance. The official notice just arrived. James's appeal was denied. 20 years for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. And Christine? 12 years. The medical abuse charges were particularly persuasive. Margaret sat down. Have you told Mia? Nadine's helping me explain it gradually. She's doing remarkably well in therapy. Lance smiled genuinely. Having her grandparents' support has made a huge difference. Speaking of support, Margaret hesitated. The board wanted me to convey our appreciation. The way you handled everything, protected the firm while exposing the corruption. Your father would be proud. Lance touched the framed photo on his desk, his father standing proudly in front of their first major project. He always said integrity was our true foundation. Later that afternoon, Lance visited the construction site of their latest project. Workers called out greetings as he inspected the progress. The Thompson development, now back on track with the original specifications, was rising steadily against the skyline. His phone buzzed a text from Clayton. James tried registering a new architecture firm from prison. Your trademark block worked perfectly. He can't use any of your father's designs or principles. Lance smiled, remembering James's fury when he discovered his brother had quietly secured the intellectual property rights to their father's architectural legacy. Some victories were best served cold. The weekend brought Mia's 8th birthday party. Lance watched from the patio as his daughter ran laughing with her friends, no longer constrained by imaginary allergies or her mother's manipulations. Eleanor and Robert Matthews stood nearby, their presence a testament to chosen family over blood ties. She's flourishing, Nadine observed, joining him with a cup of coffee. Children are remarkably resilient when given the chance to heal. Thank you, Lance said quietly, for helping her understand none of this was her fault. She has a remarkable father. Nadine smiled. Your patience in exposing the truth rather than confronting them immediately. That protected her from additional trauma. The party continued into the afternoon, filled with genuine laughter and joy. Lance caught himself studying the guests, old habits of suspicion dying hard. But these were true friends who'd stood by him. Dustin entertaining the kids with magic tricks, Clayton discussing soccer with Robert, Melody and Margaret debating investment strategies. As evening fell, Lance sat in his study, reviewing one last piece of business. The final rebranding of the firm was complete, incorporating elements of his father's original design principles, the very ones James had tried to steal. The legacy was secure, but transformed into something stronger. A small voice interrupted his thoughts. Daddy, can we have ice cream? Lance looked up to see Mia in the doorway, her party dress slightly rumpled, her smile pure and unburdened. Of course, princess. No special medicine needed. Her delighted laugh was better than any victory in boardrooms or courtrooms. They made their way to the kitchen, where the birthday cake sat half-eaten on the counter. As Lance scooped ice cream, he reflected that success wasn't measured in defeated enemies or professional triumphs. True success was watching his daughter bloom, free from manipulation and lies. It was rebuilding something stronger from the ruins of betrayal. It was creating a legacy of truth and integrity that would outlast any architectural achievement. The business empire would thrive, the legal victories would stand. But this moment, simple ice cream with his laughing daughter, this was the real triumph. Lance Baldwin had not only protected his father's legacy but built something even more precious. A future founded on trust, strength, and truth. Epilogue. 10 years later, Lance Baldwin stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, observing the cityscape he'd helped shape over the past decade. The Baldwin Architectural Group's latest project, a revolutionary sustainable skyscraper, dominated the skyline, a testament to how far the firm had come since the dark days of betrayal. At 52, he'd grown more distinguished, silver threading his temples, but his steel-gray eyes remained as sharp as ever. The Wall Street Journal on his desk featured his latest achievement. Baldwin Group revolutionizes sustainable architecture. Industry leader sets new standards. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Baldwin? Your daughter's here. Mia breezed in, now a poised 17-year-old who'd inherited her father's analytical mind and none of her mother's capacity for deceit. Her acceptance letter to MIT's architecture program lay proudly framed on his office wall. Dad, look what came. She handed him a thick envelope. The prison sent Mother's latest petition for early release. They need your statement. Lance studied his daughter's expression, seeing only calm interest where once there had been confusion and pain. What do you think? Same as the last 3 times, Mia shrugged. She made her choices. 10 years of finding God and deep remorse don't change what she did. Christine's decade in prison hadn't been kind. Her last appeal had painted a pitiful picture: failed attempts at establishing prison ministry programs, rejected parole applications, deteriorating health from the stress of incarceration. Her once pristine appearance had crumbled under the weight of prison life and bitter regret. Grandma Eleanor visited her last month. Mia continued, settling into a chair. Said she's still blaming everyone but herself. Even tried claiming she gave me vitamins instead of real medicine to protect me from other side effects. Lance remembered Eleanor Matthews' scathing report of that visit. Christine's parents had never forgiven their daughter's betrayal, channeling their love and attention instead to their granddaughter and the charitable foundation they'd established for victims of medical abuse. Any word from James? Mia asked, though they both knew the answer. James Baldwin's fate had been even harsher. 15 more years remained on his sentence, his attempts at appeals exhausted. The last update from the prison psychiatrist reported increasing paranoia and obsession with his brother's theft of their father's legacy. Still sending delusional manifestos to architectural magazines, Lance replied. Clayton had to issue another cease and desist when he tried publishing designs from prison using Dad's old techniques. The trademark protection had been particularly effective. Every attempt James made to restart his career, even from behind bars, crashed against the legal walls Lance had built. The family's architectural legacy remained solely in the hands of those who would honor it. Speaking of Clayton, Mia brightened. Did you see his daughter-made partner at the firm? Sarah's handling my internship paperwork for next summer. Clayton Caldwell's practice had grown into one of the city's most respected legal firms, specializing in corporate fraud cases. The Baldwin case had become a textbook example in law schools, studied for its intricate orchestration of corporate, criminal, and family law. Lance's phone buzzed a message from Dustin Hendricks. The private investigator had transformed his one-man operation into a prestigious security consulting firm with the Baldwin Group as his flagship client. His text was brief. Veronica Lawson's daughter Kelly just made full professor at Stanford. She still thanks you every Christmas for saving her college fund. After turning state's evidence, Veronica had served 5 years under house arrest. Her testimony had been crucial in untangling James's financial schemes. Lance had kept his word, ensuring Kelly's education remained funded through legitimate channels. The young woman now specialized in forensic accounting, turning her family's shame into a force for good. Uncle Dustin's coming to dinner tonight, Mia said, checking her phone. Aunt Melody, too. The romance between Dustin Hendricks and Melody Friedman had been an unexpected but welcome development. Their wedding 3 years ago had been a celebration of not just love, but the unexpected family forged in crisis. They now had twins, whom Mia adored babysitting. Margaret called earlier, Lance mentioned. The Chin Foundation wants to partner with us on that children's hospital project. Margaret called earlier, Lance mentioned. The Chin Foundation wants to partner with us on that children's hospital project. Margaret Chun had risen to become one of the city's most influential philanthropists. The Baldwin Group's partnership with her foundation had helped restore the firm's reputation and established new standards for ethical corporate governance. A gentle knock preceded Nadine Hodge's entrance. The child psychologist had remained a close family friend, her practice now specializing in helping children recover from parental manipulation. Ready for the foundation meeting? She asked. The new support program for children of incarcerated parents needs your input. The Baldwin Family Foundation, established 5 years after the scandal, had become a leading force in child advocacy and corporate ethics. Lance and Mia's experiences had shaped its mission, protecting vulnerable children while promoting business integrity. Did you see this? Nadine handed Lance a newspaper clipping. Martin Spencer, the disgraced Red Hawk Development CEO, had died in prison. His empire, built on fraud and corruption, had crumbled completely. The last of James's conspirators was gone. Seth Ramsey sends his regards, Nadine added. His sustainable housing project in Singapore is using your new design principles. Seth had become a valued ally and friend, his testimony years ago helping to expose the corruption while preserving his own company's integrity. The partnership between their firms now set industry standards for transparent collaboration. Lance's computer chimed an email from Robert Matthews. Christine's father had attached photos from his latest climbing expedition. After retiring from corporate life, he'd found peace in adventure travel, always sending pictures to the granddaughter he was determined to protect from her mother's toxic influence. They're putting up the sign today, Mia said suddenly. Want to watch? Together, they went to the window. Below, workers were installing the new corporate logo on their headquarters, a design that incorporated subtle elements of his father's original vision while representing the company's evolution. Lance thought about the legacy he'd protected and transformed. The Baldwin name no longer carried the shadow of betrayal. Instead, it stood for innovation, integrity, and resilience. The company his father founded had become something greater than one man's vision. It was a testament to the power of truth over deception, strength over manipulation. "Grandpa would be proud," Mia said softly, echoing his thoughts. "Not just of the buildings, but of how you protected everything he believed in." Lance looked at his daughter, confident, compassionate, and completely free of the manipulations that could have twisted her young life. This was his true masterpiece. Not the skyscrapers or corporate empire, but the next generation built on a foundation of honesty and strength. "Ready for the future?" he asked. Mia's smile was pure sunshine, untouched by shadows. "Always. We're Baldwins, after all. We build things to last." Behind them, the city stretched endlessly, filled with structures bearing their family's mark. But the most enduring architecture wasn't visible from this window. It was in the relationships they'd fortified, the principles they'd protected, the legacy they'd not just preserved but elevated. The betrayers remained confined by walls of their own, making Christine in her prison of regret, James in his cage of bitterness. But the Baldwins? They had built something that soared far above those limitations. A future anchored in truth, reaching ever upward toward new possibilities. In the end, that was the greatest victory. Not the punishment of enemies or the accumulation of wealth, but the creation of something stronger than the forces that had tried to tear it down. A legacy not just of steel and stone, but of character and conviction. The sunset behind their newest tower, its sustainable design casting unique shadows across the city. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to build and grow. But the foundation was solid now, tested by fire and stronger for the tempering. The Baldwin legacy would continue, not as a monument to revenge, but as a testament to resilience. And that, Lance reflected, watching his daughter already sketching improvements to their latest design, was worth more than any victory over those who tried to destroy it. Some buildings rose from ruins. The finest rose above them, reaching heights their destroyers never imagined possible. The Baldwin Architectural Group, like the family that led it, had done both.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy the story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.